All right, folks. A lot going on past week with the Mets. Just a lot of crazy happenings. Obviously, on the field, got swept by the Cubs in a 4-game series. And talk about that real quick. Really quick. And then get on to the other topics. Um, Obviously, after the doubleheader on what was that, Wednesday? David Peterson got traded to the Cubs. That was weird too, but yeah, he finally got traded. First real move for us of what will possibly be a lot more between now and the trading deadline. We'll see how that goes. A lot of the talk was about us being sellers. We're kind of holding out, hoping to get back into it, but now with this 4-game sweep at the hands of Chicago, really starts to look bleak, to be honest. But we'll look at those games real quick. So, first game was actually supposed to be Monday night. They got rained out, so they moved that game to Wednesday as a doubleheader. So, it came out Tuesday night. Mets lose 6-9, 9-6, 6-9, 9-6. 6 was 9. Another loss. Game 1 on Wednesday. Beat down 10-3. Couldn't seem to stop Swanson. The guy had a monster series for the Cubs. I think he had 15 RBIs in the 4 games. Game 2, Cubs scored 10 again against us, 10-5. And then last game on Thursday was a pretty competitive game. Peralta looked like he was back to his normal self. Defense did them in, went to the 10th inning. We didn't score. Cubs scored. Bottom line, 4-game sweep. Now 8-14 in June. I was saying we needed to try to get a winning record. That's impossible at this point. We'd have to win every game just to get a 500 record. So, yeah, not good. And then the consequences of that sweep brought us to the midpoint of the season, 81 games. Mets have a 34-47 record, so 13 games below 500. It is our worst half-point record since 2018 when we won 33 games. And we wound up with 77 at the end of the season that year. Obviously not good enough to make the playoffs, or still below 500. But, yeah. Worst start to a season since 2018. So I mentioned about Peterson getting traded for a prospect. Guy looks decent from what I could tell. Still in A-ball, but he was hitting for power. I believe he's injured at this point. But, main story here is just moving on from Peterson. I know I had mentioned in previous videos, I was pretty vocal about my thoughts on Peterson himself. Maybe it's a body language thing or whatever, but he just seemed like he didn't really enjoy playing baseball and being born a good baseball player or whatever. Like, I don't know how he is personally. He seems like a pretty subdued personality, so it's hard to really tell. But I mean, just seeing his demeanor on the mound, coming off the mound, and interviews, it just seemed like he regrets playing baseball. Hopefully, that's not the case for him. He, when he can put it together, he made All-Star team last year, so he has the ability. He just needs to put it together. Maybe he's just a change of scenery guy, and he could turn his career around. He was going to be eligible for free agency at the end of the year anyway, so chances are we weren't going to sign him, so we got something for him. I mean, it really speaks volumes how they just wanted to get rid of him, doing it now when we have so many other problems with our rotation, and then bridging to the good relievers at the end of the game if we had a lead by chance. But yeah, I think they just felt the time was right, and the Cubs were hurting on their rotation, so they were willing to give up a decent prospect for him, and we took advantage of it a full month before the trading deadline. So, it's easy to think that it's the first step of a trade-off of all these assets that could help other teams. Other players being discussed were Peralta. I spoke about that, saying we could really get a decent return if he, worked on improving. I mean, he's not going to work on improving his value to help us, but in his opportunity to get paid in free agency as well, he needed to step up his game, and he kind of, gave a little bit of a glimpse of that in the fourth game of the series against the Cubs. Hopefully, he can continue to do that, even if it doesn't result in success for the Mets, because it'll just improve the value of the package we could get for him when traded. Other guys being talked about are the lefty relievers, Raley, AJ Minter. They could help contending teams down the stretch, and possibly even Vientos or Beatty. Although I don't know what their value really is. They're kind of bottoming out with really not performing or getting consistent playing time this year. I mean, Vientos shown a little pop recently, but his defense is just not major league quality at any position that he's played. I do have some material put together for a little video where I'm going to talk about Vientos and Beatty as a duo and what I think is going to happen with them. So, try to get that out soon before one of them does possibly get traded, and then it's a moot point. So yeah, Peterson, first ball to drop there. And then the big news came Friday morning. Found out Carlos Mendoza got fired. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to look at this. Me personally, I could go either way on it. I mean, he was already in his last year of his contract. I don't think it was going to get renewed. I know everyone was asking me what my thoughts are about this even before it happened, because I was talking to some Phillies fans out the other night, and I was asking them about what they thought occurred when they switch from Thompson to Mattingly, and the team turned around. One guy I talked to, he said a lot of it had to do with the schedule they were playing, which could have some merit to it. I mean, obviously the Phillies got off to a rough start, similar to the Mets. It just shows that firing a manager, although the differences may not be tangible to the fans watching the games, it could have an effect on the team. Just a different vibe in the clubhouse and the dugout. It's hard to really know what the differences are. I mean, the players would know best, but usually they're not going to speak out against the manager that just got fired, especially if they respected him, and they usually put the blame on themselves. You've seen the Mets players doing that when asked about Mendoza being fired. It seemed like they all respected him, and they didn't feel that it was his fault really. What was, whether the slow start, the losing streak, kind of got back into it a little bit, but then we just hit this patch this month, or actually in the last 2 weeks, where it seemed like we just cratered here. And then the guy I was talking to, he asked me about, why didn't the Mets do the same thing? And I was like, well, I guess they don't feel it was him that was the problem, and that it was on the players. I mean, you see everybody underperforming really, except Soto and like a couple other guys, but not major players. And then the new guys coming up and having success. But I mean, is Mendoza responsible for that? I don't know. I thought he was kind of an okay manager. He dealt with the media fairly well, and that is a big part of the job for the Mets manager, because they're interviewed before or after every game, do press conferences every once in a while, having to give constant updates on guys getting injured and when they're coming back, and other moves. Like, the media hounds these guys, so that is a really big part of the job, more so for the manager than even the players have to in dealing with the media. I mean, they're always questioned as well, but it's probably a little bit easier for them because they can just, get by with manufactured answers and things like that. I mean, not that guys don't speak their mind occasionally, but they usually try to keep it positive. So yeah, Mendoza, he was the manager during the 2024 season. He got a lot of credit for that. It's debatable the percentages of credit to be rewarded or awarded. I think in that case, it was a matter of just the team gelling at, around the midpoint of the season and carrying that into the end. I mean, we still had to win on the last day of the season just to make the playoffs. It's easily forgotten with just the craziness of those playoff games, the series, and how we won in Milwaukee, and then just jumping on the Phillies and knocking them out. I mean, that was a crazy ride. Obviously ran into the Dodgers and couldn't quite match their their hitting or pitching. So, obviously, came up short in that series. And then you look at how that compares to last year when it was kind of the opposite, where we started off great and then fell off in the second half. I mean, last year at this time, we had 47 wins and ended up with 83. So we had almost as bad of a second half as we've had a first half, almost as bad, 2 games better, but it was still the same kind of situation. When you put them back to back halves together, that's a 70-win team. But then again, even last year, like I said, we got off to a good start, and it just came down to the last game of the season. Um, Literally, it was, if we had won any of those games that we lost 2 out of 3 at Miami and lost out to the Reds in the wild card. So it came down to one game. I mean, is Mendoza to blame for that? Obviously we had a lot of problems at the end of the season last year. I mean, just the pitching staff fell apart. 11-17 in August, and then 10-15 in September. Just folded down the stretch there, and there was a lot of problems. Which led to major moves. Some were kind of expected. We had a bunch of guys on free agency. Obviously, Diaz and Alonso, the big ones. Didn't re-sign them. Signed some other guys who haven't played that much, really. I mean, with Polanco and Robert, who we traded for. Devin Williams been okay. Weaver's been really good. Bichette obviously underperformed so far this year, but I mean, he could still turn around, but it's almost too late at this point. He'll probably end up with decent stats at the end of the year, but it's like, what did you do when we needed you kind of thing. And then, honestly, like Lindor and Soto have only played 9 games total together this season. So, 2 best players not on the field at the same time. It's like when one comes back, the other gets hurt. I mean, that's what happened. When Soto finally came back and Lindor got hurt the first game, and then a similar situation happened. Lindor came back, and Soto missed. He only missed like a little bit of time, but now he's back. Everybody's back in full strength. And it just is, I don't know if it's a weird coincidence or the timing of the Mendoza firing coinciding with these two coming back. I don't know. I think it's just the halfway point, and they made that a good time to gauge where they thought the team was heading. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Like I said, I had some, gripes with some of the stuff that Mendoza did. I felt he kind of babied the starters at times. I mean, even if they're not pitching well, you want to get some kind of length out of them at times. I mean, I can understand like the first 2 times around the rotation, but even then, and then especially last year, like I noticed he was taking guys out in the 3rd and 4th inning. It's like, well, the bullpen's been decent, but you can't just keep going to that well because the starter doesn't have it, and then that just affects the entire team. I mean, they had to make so many moves with guys coming up, pitching one game, getting sent out, getting DFA'd because we didn't need them or needed a fresh arm to come in. I mean, it's like a constant theme of the season so far, and then that also happened last year. I mean, obviously, some of it's out of necessity when the starters don't perform, but I think at times they got a little bit too aggressive with removing the starters, even when struggling, and that adds up over the course of a season. I mean, last year I'm pretty sure we broke the record for most pitchers used by a team. I mean, that's not a record you want to have. And then it happened this year, a lot of it was caused by underperformance by the starters, namely Senga, also injury there. Peterson himself just couldn't claim the right to have a rotation spot held for them. But I don't know. I There were calls for Mendoza to be fired back when we had the losing streak and came out of that and still kind of struggled. I mean, who knows what would happen if he was replaced then? We'll never know. But just doing it, and then Stearns also put his word out that he was going to stay with Mendoza. Stay with Mendoza. He was the manager. Totally supported him. Even after they let him go, they were still supporting him, but they just felt the need to make a move, I guess. And it's almost like it seems the timing seems weird because it's like it's almost too late. Whether or not it would have made a difference, like I said, who knows? But if you're attempting to do something like the Phillies were able to do after they got rid of their manager, there's no guarantees, but they felt he wasn't the problem, and the players just need to play better and figured they would. So, and when that didn't happen, they finally decided to cut bait there. And that's, you could tell with Mendoza, he was kind of seemed burnt out a little bit just by the answers he was given in interviews. It's, just the same recycled stuff. But really, what can you say when the performance on the field is just embarrassing at times? And you can only say, yeah, we got to play better. You can only say that so many times before you probably feel like an idiot just having to continually say the same stuff. I saw the press conference with the new guy, this Andy Green. He was part of the basically overseeing the farm system and the development side of things. He has previous manager experience, which I believe is lacking on their current major league coaching staff. So I think they didn't want to take any of these guys out of their positions. I mean, they're all new too. All the coaches since the turnover from last year, where the only guy they kept was Mendoza. So we bring in this Green. Like I said, he managed before in San Diego. I watched his press conference. I was like oddly impressed with his attitude because he's not trying to like win the manager spot. He stated that he was content in staying in the player development side of things. He's not looking to really manage. And Stearns even mentioned that when he was asked in his press conference whether Green was going to be a candidate to be manager after this interim period. And he right away said no, just kind of showing his value to to that side of things, and then Green just would rather stay in that role. So it's an interesting move. I don't know what to expect. I'm not saying I expect him to be terrible or good. Mainly, I don't expect it to make that much of a difference because the team is kind of in shambles, and especially on the starting pitching. So we'll probably see more guys get called up, some prospects. I know they're having Zach Thornton pitch against the Phillies. He made his first start a while back against Washington, sent back down, and now he's back up. Gonna, see if he could stick in a rotation, kind of a lefty to replace Peterson, who was lefty. Um, I don't know. I'll be interested to see how this guy runs the team, just from his perspective on being familiar with a lot of the younger players. I mean, he knows Benj, he knows Ewing, guys that have already come up and solidified their roles on the team and have been some of the only bright spots in the storyline for this season so far. So I don't know. I'll be interested to follow this guy just to hear his impressions of the team and what he thinks they can do better. His take on managing, on him managing, at least this time around. I don't think it's like his total philosophy on managing, but he seems like he comes in with zero ego at all and is just really looking to help the players get back on track, and then after the end of the season get back to doing the development role, long term, or I guess as long as Stearns is with the organization. So I mean, who knows how that's going to play out. I don't foresee them getting rid of Stearns. I mean, I know a lot of fans are coming out with the pitchforks, and rightly so, really, because I mean, just the moves he's made hasn't worked. Uh, it would take an entire other video to go into all those moves in depth and to address them properly, and I do plan on doing that. Just with these uh, new situations coming up, it's a lot to process right now, and just how that's all going to factor into what the team does going forward, and even allows for another look back at the moves that were made. Um, Kind of is all in conjunction with the Mendoza firing and what this means for Stearns, really. But hey, after 81 games, 34 and 47, probably stop talking about how far we are out of the wild card, because it doesn't really seem to be getting better at all. It's actually getting worse. And I mean, we do have a whole nother half of the season to play, so I want to keep watching the game. I need to maintain some kind of interest. And Mets, even when they're not playing well, it's always an interesting story. Everyone has their opinions and all that. You hear these FAN clowns. Everyone got a screaming take on it. I'm just trying to be honest about my opinions on all these happenings. I don't know. There's only so much you could say without knowing like all the details. But I mean, I kind of agree that Mendoza wasn't the biggest part of the problem. I mean, they were able to win with him. I don't think it was because of him, but they also lost a lot more with him. So it'll be interesting. if not entertaining, for a good reason. All right, I'll catch you guys later.